With us today, Chris Doelle, Friday Night Legends and Saturday Legends. Friday Night Legends, as you can see, the high school football board game, and Saturday Legends, an entrant into the pantheon of college games here. Chris, thank you so much for sharing some time with us today.
Oh, you bet. It's my privilege, man. Thanks.
You got me thinking back to my old alma mater here, Seminole High School. I was class of '84 actually, but Seminole High School, Seminoles, they just won 13-0 last year, won the Division 8A state championship. And of course, here in Jersey, out there by the Delaware, we've got the 100-plus-year-old rivalry of Eastern PA versus Phillipsburg, New Jersey. High school football, you know, it's a big deal. I'm just curious, since that was if I'm correct, Friday Night Legends got it started for you, the November 2017 Kickstarter project?
Correct. Yeah, actually, my business partner and I have been friends since junior high school. We played high school football together at a tiny little school in Texas, and just really stayed fans of the game even after we graduated from college. So launched a website called Lone Star Gridiron, which covers Texas high school football. And, you know, we've been running that now for, gosh, forever, and had all this data on Texas high school football teams. So we thought, hey, let's make a game. And first edition was Texas teams.
Of course, I mean, legendary state for football there. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more of a team-based concept, correct?
Yeah, completely team-based, because it's based on their real statistics. So if your team, if you're the Massillon Tigers, you know, and you average 4.7 yards per carry, that's what your team's going to do, you know, over the course of a certain number of games. Obviously, there's still, it's the saying I love is it's a funny shaped ball, so it bounces funny.
So obviously, this is a fairly you know, large scale undertaking. You know, this isn't the NFL or the NCAA where you've got you know, very narrow or well-established sources of statistical information. I mean, I feel like you're probably digging a lot here. How does that work?
Well, luckily, like I said, with how we started was Texas high school football. And Texas high school football, our website has over 100 years of data on every single team. So that gave us a leg up where to start. And then we started searching other states. There's some states that have decent statistics. Florida has some good stuff. Alabama has some good stuff. Other ones, it's really newspapers.com, reading newspaper articles, getting box scores. So in the game, you're allowed to order from us any team of any year if we can find the data. So, you know, we now have a crack team that just goes out and finds that information.
Awesome. Yeah, in the Apple world, we've had home brewers over the years. You know, they'll do little league sets on occasion, very small issue, you know, customized stuff like that. How did you get the idea that, well, you know, and did you to do the game, and how did you kind of come up with the mechanics, and what's your kind of personal board gaming history?
Well, I tell you, the idea for the game was first computer, because both Mike and I, my business partner, have computer background. So we were going to make it a computer game. He's the statistic freak. I'm the one who loves to tell stories. So I said, you know, let's make this game. You know, I'll build the storylines. You know, you add things up, and so we realized that's a big commitment to make a computer game. I went back to him a year later and said, hey, what about a board game? Would you be willing to do that? And he said, okay, I'll do that. And my inspiration for the game was the old Avalon Hill Bowl Bound. If you remember that, Bowl Bound, Pay Dirt, things like that, team-based, based on real statistics, but we wanted to go a little bit deeper and base it on more statistics instead of just overall points scored or something like that. And being computer nerds, we figured out algorithms to make that happen.
So then how do you make the leap how long did it take you to dial in Friday Night Legends and then make the leap to Saturday Legends?
Well, it was 2 years later, we did the Saturday Legends Kickstarter. It was probably a year into Friday Night Legends that we had enough people requesting it that we looked into it and thought, if we can find the stats, luckily there are great stats for Division I football teams, or FBS. Not so much on D3, but we're finding it. It's, to us, you can find 1945 Army because all the stats are out there. But trying to find some small college is just like what we're doing trying to find a small New Jersey high school. It's the same thing. We're used to doing it, but we love the college game as much as we love the high school. So we launched it. It funded also.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, for years, APBA folks have been, again, talking about home brewing, brewing some college teams until that was officially added to the game company's repertoire. So there's certainly been a demand there.
Yeah.
You being a storyteller, I just wonder, have you kind of learned? I mean, I see one of your football teams, I think, is 21 Jacksonville Duval for Friday Night Legends. I mean, it's pretty deep cut, if you will. Have you kind of learned a lot about the teams, these small niche teams? Did you kind of hear about them first before carding them, or did you just kind of, how did that work?
Well, I have to give all the credit to our fans, or our coaches, we call them, because they're the ones who requested these obscure teams. So, again, I love going back to newspapers.com, reading articles about, and this is a Texas example. Port Isabel Tarpons back in the day had a running back called Johnny Nitro Nieto and the Seawall defense. And it's just such good stories that, I love researching that stuff, finding out. And it's the coaches who keep coming back saying, well, what about this team? And then I go learn about it. So I love it.
Awesome. This is awesome. I got to tell you, I know you do some discount codes, and I'm looking at my high school, one of my yearbooks here. It's like, this has got to be this would be an incredible gift for high school reunions. I mean, how fantastic would this be?
Yeah, we do that. And we've done it for a couple reunions, like South Lake Carroll, their coach, who's recently announced he's retiring. His son played for him for one of his national or state championships, and now his son coaches that team. So we put together a special package for them. They get a discount, and they get all the South Lake Carroll teams that we have, which is like a dozen of them right now.
Wow, wow. What are some of the teams that kind of, speaking of a kind of a historic stretch for teams? I mean, I remember Pensacola Woodham was a powerhouse for a while there. What are some of the kind of the dynasties that are really maybe the top 5 or 10 high school football dynasties that you've kind of come across and really come to admire?
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the first is obviously Friday Night Lights themselves, Odessa Permian, the Mojo. He made movies, TV shows, books, you name it. That one, you can't mention any list without mentioning that one. But you go to California and you have the Mater Days, you have the St. Saviors, the St. John Boscos, up in your part of the woods, so the Hoover Alabamas. There's so many great programs. Massillon, I mentioned earlier, one of the amazing program. Coach Paul Brown used to coach there before he went on to college and pro fame. But there's so many great stories in this.
And now the mechanics for both games are the same, correct?
Almost. The Saturday Legends is a little bit tweaked because we have special teams information. We have stats on punts and punt returns and things like that. So it's an option. They can use that. They can use the generic chart if they don't want to figure out, I get a +5 on my punt returns and you get a +3 on your returns defense. If you don't want to jack with that, you just use the standard one. But there are some teams that the special teams were a huge part of their game. So the purists will definitely want to use those.
Interesting. And of course, the college game, evolves as the pro game does. I mean, I imagine do you incorporate some kind of era specific play tendencies or team performance or character in the sets?
Yeah, with the high school, we do it with what we call our strength of schedule, and that goes by strictly by enrollment. So, because you've got some teams that have won, down in Louisiana, I can't think of the name right now, but like 25 state championships they won. But they're small school and they're boys only. So, that enrollment is really double when you put it into one of the other ones. So we use strength of schedule to even that playing field. With college, we do some stuff with coaching points that are similar, that give a power rating, and you translate those into coaching points that you can use for some key moment decisions. And those power ratings come directly from NCAA records throughout the year. So it makes it easier for us.
For sure, for sure. Hey, so we're going to post this video, but for the podcast folks, let's do a virtual unboxing. Can you kind of walk us through what we get in either of these sets? I mean, you see
Sure.
you get the nice box here and color-coded team sets, things like that.
Yeah, you'll get 10 teams in each game. I don't have the list in front of me, but the high school one now, this is the second edition. It comes out with 10 teams of varying size from varying parts of the nation, some of the top teams around the country. So there's some good representation. We did the same thing with Saturday Legends with the college. You've got the 1945 Army Black Knights, one of the best teams ever. You've got 1988 Oklahoma State with Barry Sanders at running back. You've got Vince Young's UT. We always include some Texas in everything we do. and in addition to those team sheets, you get what are called our X sheets, and that's where special things happen. So if you roll what we call a big play, there's a big play chart you roll, and it tells you roll a D20 plus 5, or it's an instant touchdown or whatever. We have penalty charts there. We have kicking charts. We have basically all the extra stuff you need in those charts. They also each come with a play checkoff sheet, because to keep things statistically accurate, you can't run, deep pass every single play. They may be really good at it, but they only did it twice in a game. Statistically, you're only going to be able to do it twice in a game until you use up the rest of your plays, and then it resets. So we have those play checkoff sheets. We also have the score pad, which has, again, like the old bowl bound, it's got your quarters, it's got your score, it's got your timeout markers. It has 10-second blocks for every bit of time. So when something takes 30 seconds, you mark off 3. When something takes 40, you mark off 4. And then the board has some of the cheat sheet kind of things you roll, like a penalty die, and it shows you on the board, if you roll a 1, it's an offensive penalty, a 20 is a defensive penalty, a 15 is what's called a special, which takes you to those charts again. You roll the special chart, and that's where oddball things can happen. But, if you know anything about statistics, you realize that's a very small percentage of the time that's going to happen. But this game is full of odd things in real life. So it makes it much more realistic when something like that does happen.
We've talked a lot about the NFL. Obviously, player efficiency is off the charts. I mean, refinement of all the athletics really is. Is there a tendency in maybe the high school game, Friday Night Legends, to maybe have a little more of that oddity? I mean, a little less of the a little more of the awkward outcomes, things like that, or is that not really a factor when you're talking about?
No, it's not really that different, because, and we wondered that's one of the first things when we went from high school to college. We thought, okay, let's see what percentage of the time penalties happen. Let's see what percentage of the time different things happen. And it's almost, and even throughout time, it's almost lockstep. So, you would think, I look for trends like that, because I'm a storyteller and that tells a story. But those didn't really happen. That it's pretty consistent over time and over level of play.
Interesting, interesting. Um, and now, actually, your partner Michael Wright did last year did an 80 team
Yeah,
right stuff tournament, 2020 tourney, 80 teams,
yeah,
5 winners. He kind of split them into 16 team groups, something like that. How did
right.
that turn out? I mean, was that a good kind of follow-up play test for the game?
Yeah, definitely. And on our site, on both of these sites, we have all the teams ranked, and we have them ranked based on our algorithm. But as we do plays, as people turn in results of games they played, it affects the ranking. So teams are moving. So he was doing that mainly to test out rankings and see how well our algorithm was working for rankings. And it held true. And people moved around a little bit, but your number one team didn't drop down to number 350. It may have slid down to 4. So yeah, I mean that was fun because that's part of the interaction we do on Facebook. Is each game we would post, okay, here are the two teams, here's what they score, here's what they give up, pick the winner. And we kept track of how everybody did. And depending on how you did at the very end, the top guy, gets a really big prize, and everybody who participated got something. so we enjoyed doing that. That was a blast.
Speaking of Facebook, I see that your the FNL group is up to 422 members. I mean, that's pretty strong, quite strong for this kind of a,
Yeah.
the tabletop gaming world generally, I think, and specifically. I mean, what kind of interaction are you getting? I mean, do you have any people already kind of doing homebrew stuff? Would they bother? Or they just tell you, hey, how about this team? Card these guys up.
Yeah, we get that a lot, and luckily we have some key people who love to report their scores and game write-ups, and that's my favorite thing is I love the game, but I don't have time to play as many as they do. So when I get these write-ups, I love it because they also add pictures from that team and stuff. And I've got one guy, 2017 Cartersville High School in Georgia was where quarterback Trevor Lawrence played high school football. And because I guess he has some conversation with somebody who doesn't like the guy, every time he refers to him in one of these posts, he calls Trevor Lawrence the greatest living American.
Subtle.
And so, yeah, every time he does a post, I know he's going to refer to how the greatest living American did, because he never lost a high school game, never lost a college game, and went in number one in the draft.
And that actually brings up, that player specific, fast drive football. They've been getting a lot of attention. The drive-by-drive NFL game. Someone's, Brian Martin already created a World Football League and card set. But there are people who want to take this generic team concept and start allocating touchdowns. They have this insistence. Do you get anything like that, or are people content to kind of keep it team based?
Well, yeah, actually, again, my partner Mike Wright did just that with the 1982 SMU Mustangs, the Pony Express, which had Eric Dickerson and Craig James in the Pony Express backfield. And so based on their percentage of how they did with carries during the season, at the end of the game, he would allocate those stats and those runs to whichever one. So he played what he called the 1982 SMU Dream season, which played them against some great teams, including an old SMU team, which was awesome. And again, we interacted on Facebook where, people got to pick the winners and all that stuff. But after each game, he would say Eric Dickerson carried 27 times for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. Craig James carried, 18 times for 92 yards or something. So yeah, we get that, and people are starting to do more of that if they have one of those teams. There's a high school team, again, because there's 3,000 high schools in Texas. You multiply that twice the whole United States, I will forget team names. But there's one, it was like a 1907 team no, it wasn't 1907. It was 1919. It was the Spanish flu year. And they had just four amazing players on this team. They outscored people, and I'm going to be wrong on the total, like 680 to nothing. And so people have wanted to allocate on that team, just to see who did what. And those are the stories I love. Like I mentioned, the fact that this was a collection of all-stars going up against teams that were decimated by the Spanish flu. So it was ugly.
What are some of the oldest teams? I think we mentioned 21, what you just talked about. What are some of the oldest teams, or do you go back even farther than 20th century?
Well, I think 1907 is the oldest I remember. Yeah, as far as ones we've had made. We've got some that are in the hopper. We're just trying to find more info. We're not going to put it out there unless we get some information.
What's the bare minimum that you need statistically to card a team or season?
We can do it with points scored, points against. We obviously need, but then we need some inkling of what percentage of the time they ran versus passed, because that's a really big factor in the thing. We can come up with what was typical for teams of that type in that era for yards per carry if they scored this many points, and gave up this many. So we can figure that out, but we do have to know if they threw 60% of the time or they threw 10% of the time.
What kind of feedback do you get from folks in terms of gameplay, time to play, things like that?
It really depends on the person, and I'm probably the best example of the slowest way to play it because one, I'm old. Those are little numbers. Takes me time. Like I said, Mike is the guy that does addition and subtraction. I have to count on my fingers and see how many yards it is. He does in his head, before he's finished rolling almost. So I can finish a game now in about an hour and a half. He finishes probably 35 minutes. And of course, he uses some online cheat tools too, where we have some Google Sheets set up that can keep track of things because he's keeping stats and everything. If I do stats, it's taking me 3 hours easily.
Now have you ever done something like an entire division in the States so you could play an entire season out?
Yeah, we actually, when you ask, have we ever done it? Mike has done it. He took our, we graduated class of 83. So he took our 82 season and made everybody in it and replayed that whole season. And we've got some people, we've got a customer out in California right now who wants to do that with an entire division of California high schools from 2020 and basically replay that entire season. So yeah, more and more people are getting into doing that.
I gotta tell you, again, going back to the idea of, doing this for high school reunions, I mean, what about the kids actually in schools? I mean, this is, if you're showing kids, hey, these are your classmates just won a state championship, you think that might help get them into gaming, board gaming?
Well, yeah, actually, I think so. I don't know if it gets them in, but I know they have interest because I know a year ago, we had a small town in Texas who was making a really deep playoff run for the first time in decades. And one of our coaches had a kid playing there. And he said, can you make this team? And I said, sure, of course we can. We got the stats, made it. And he had the whole team over and they all played. So again, I don't know if they became big time tabletop board game players, but they sure had fun that night.
That's tremendous. That is awesome. Yeah. Is there any, I mean, the NFL board gaming world is kind of overloaded, but is there any inkling that you might attempt to bring your unique brand to, pro football or Canadian football or European football?
Right. Actually, yeah, we've looked into it a lot. We've got probably 75% of it done already. Um, Mike and I constantly argue over who gets included in those first 10 because I want to do these great historic ones. He wants to do the most recent ones because they're easiest to find stats. So I get it. but we're still kind of toying with going between that or college basketball because we have a lot of interest in college basketball and we have that game even a little further along.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's a great, oh man, again, and you go back to, if you're going back to you know, your kind of alma maters and then that 83, they're very nice. I remember back at Crooms High School, we had a couple of killer point guards, man. If you
Yeah.
were to even a high school basketball game, I mean, that's just, it's really possibilities are kind of endless. How do you kind of how do you kind of break these projects into chunks, manageable, and kind of move them forward, in a timely and efficient manner?
Yeah, I'm not sure we do it very efficiently. we we do it as we can. We get caught up on sending out team orders and think, okay, now we can have time to work on that, and then we'll get an order. And I'm not joking, for 100 more teams, custom made, that we have to go find stats on. I'm like, oh, you're killing me. But we love it because our library is exploding.
Man, that's amazing. That's going to become a whole resource
Yeah,
for, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, was it Cold Hard Football Facts became, kind of a different kind of site where you could kind of go in, I think, and pay, or I don't know, some
right.
kind of pay content site or anything like that. I mean, your database that you already had in Texas of expanding out like this. I mean, this is really deep archival stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, that's the stuff I like, telling these histories. One of the things we're toying with, again, that's that whole managing time thing, is a podcast series um, that I've tentatively named Legends of the Game, where each episode we just talk about one team, whether it's high school, whether it's college or something like that. Because every time I do research on a team, I go, oh, that's awesome. And I try to tell Mike about it and he's busy doing something. So, so I'm like, oh, I want to share these stories so bad.
I'll definitely do that. That's a huge. I mean, that's spot on. I mean, I tried. I used to do little scouting reports for pro teams because APBA's. You have player by player player cards, and you can kind of get a sense of how players interact and work with each other. But to be able to, I mean, the audience for that. See, that's a key kind of a game marketing thing,
Yeah.
is that you can draw in so many folks, just the alma mater. They may not even play, and it may get them to play. So the sooner that gets launched, the better, man. Let me know.
Yeah, yeah, I'll add it to my list of things to do.
Exactly. Right there you go. That's it. Yeah, the project list, the ever expansive. Oh man. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you've got this methodology, you've got your kind of research process established, going back, I mean, again, back to the NFL, but really, like, if you're talking about maybe 1920s, things like that, I mean, a lot of these games, football games, will go back to the 40s and maybe some individual players from the 20s. Obviously, the stats are hard to get, but
Yeah.
are 20s NFL stats harder to get than high school stats? I mean, that would be.
No, the NFL in its order of descending, ability, basically, NFL is the easiest to find stats going back, with the exception of things like sacks. They didn't record them before, I think, 1979 or somewhere in there. So there's some things you can't get. And if you want to have the ability to sack with a 1920 team, you got to come up with some guesses, But same thing, the next level is college. College has a little bit, less stats than pro. And obviously high school, depending on the states that are meccas of high school football, they have good stats, but you get to, I think we added our first Wyoming team or something like that. That's really difficult.
For sure.
You're
And
lucky if they've ever gotten mentioned in a newspaper.
yeah, well, that's the thing too. I mean, you're limited by the resource there, for sure. Have you done anything like you did with FNL, like a college football tournament? I imagine you've done something like that.
Uh,
Like high school?
well, not yet. That's on, the tournaments are all on Mike's side of the field.
Yeah.
So he's doing right now in high school, and as soon as this is over, he'll do a college thing. He's doing Texas versus the country. So he's taking some of the top Texas teams in our library against some of the top teams around the country, and just playing those out and letting people pick who they think's going to win.
Nice, nice. Prior to the pandemic, had you kind of gone on the road to some of the game cons, things like that?
No, it I've been wanting to, but obviously the pandemic slowed that down. I travel a lot already between, I still am very active in Texas high school football. So all football season, I'm booked. Come summertime, I do marketing. So I'm usually working with clients, but that's also the time my wife says, look, that our time has to come somewhere. So there's a lot of that, which I'm grateful for, but I would love to go to some conventions.
For sure, for sure. Interesting. I've always thought, it might be nice. I did an APBA football tournament in 2013. The baseball game in APBA, I don't know how familiar you are with the company, an old game, but baseball kind of rules the roost there. It occurs to me that doing a gridiron gaming convention,
Yeah.
I know that Play does its convention, and I think they welcome many games. If you ever ever thought a gridiron gaming convention, I'd certainly be in to do that with you. I'd love to,
Nice.
bring them all
Well,
out together.
as of right now, every summer for the past 3 years, we've done a small get together in Shiner, Texas, and we, it's just people who are within driving distance. So we'll get. I think the first year we had 6, that showed up because it was brand new, and it was just people. We said, "Come, it'll be fun." And then I think we live streamed the championship game last year. So we're trying to do more of that, but again, it all depends on schedules.
Sure, sure. And you also do something. Well, actually, first of all, about how many teams now, high school teams, are in your archive? How many of you?
The library for high school is north of 800, but I still think south of 1,000, but it's growing fast.
Man, oh man, that's
And
amazing.
college, I think we're up to about 250.
Awesome, awesome. Just it was gonna, and now you do something called a Team of the Month subscription, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, and that is something that I just came up with top of my head and thought, hey, people who don't know, they may know their team and they know the 5 big ones that people around the country talk about, but they don't know about the Cartersville Georges, or they don't know about, just oddball teams. So we did a Team of the Month thing, and in that Team of the Month, in addition to, oh, you get a team, one, it's half price of library teams, so it's a cheaper way to get a team, but you can kind of direct the type of team you like. So if you like big schools, or if you like East Coast schools, or if you like passing teams, you just kind of give us a simple direction. Don't say specifically, then Mike goes through and finds the small team, and we have it for the high school game or the college game. So we got one person who just wants D3 college teams, and so that's what they get, and they're loving it.
Nice, nice. I love that. That's really catering to the customer there. So what do let's see. You've got on the Saturday Legends.com, you've got the changes to the kicking game rules, a piece of one of the play cards here, a little blurb on the 10 greatest running backs. To buy now, I click on that. It's let's see, it's going to take a second to load here. You often well, how do you want to? So it looks like it's in stock, $54.95, and teams in the base game: 2005 Texas, 2001 Miami, 2019 LSU, etc., etc. Little Gators team, go Gators, very nice. 2009, and then you get all the other accoutrement here. 20-sided die. I've never used those in a football game. How integral is that to it? I mean, what's kind of key to that 20-sided die?
Well, the 20-sided is where we do all the charts. When you look at the X charts, those are all 20-sided. Also the penalty roll. But what's unique to this game, actually both games use it, is a 24-sided die, which we had to go find custom because they're just not standard. And those are all for the offensive play calling, because you have, again, if you're a heavy, there's 24 play selections you can make. If you run 50-50, there's 12 of them will be runs, 12 of them will be passes. If you're a run heavy team, you could have 23 runs and 1 pass. So that's why we needed a 24-sided die, because you can't do that with D6 rolling it 3 times, because you'd never get 1 and 2. So yeah, it was unique, and somehow we found it that we could get it made, and that's the only game I've ever seen with a 24-sided die.
What have you learned kind of as a game designer as you've gone here and refined your process?
I think what I've learned here is kind of what I've learned from anything that I have done. I'm not the customer. because that's it. Mike and I will be brainstorming and we'll say, oh, it'd be great if we did this, great if we did that, great if we did that, and we'll roll it out and there'll be crickets. Or instead we'll say, here's the 6 options, folks, what do you think? And they'll pick the one we totally would have never guessed. So that's the key, is find out what they want. It's not about us. I mean, the us was, we want this game in the world. They get to decide what the game is.
Excellent. That makes a lot of sense there. Any last thoughts about kind of your goals? I mean, we've talked a lot about your future here, plans and games in the works. Any last thoughts on kind of the world of tabletop gaming, the world of the future of cards and dice, things like that?
Yeah, I am 100% on board with tabletop. They're calling it the golden age of tabletop right now, and I think that's because everybody went away from tabletops to computer games and screens and all that. And even though there's massively multi online role-playing games where everybody works together, it's not interactive. But when you're on a tabletop with somebody, it's much more intimate. You're connecting with people again. And again, that said, we discovered our biggest market was solo gameplay. Did not know that. and that to me takes me back to my childhood when I used to make up games on scratch papers. I'd make up games, play whole seasons of NFL, seasons, every single game I'd play. And then, I don't know how old I was, about that tall, but I'd go show my mom the results and she'd go, that's nice, dear. That's nice, dear. Yeah, she was a very accommodating, nice mother. But, as a child, that whole world was in my head. I could see it, how it rolled out. And so same thing with this. You get to see how your team develops, whether it's just that one game. You start late, or your team starts slow and then picks up, or you play a whole season with them, and you're developing a story inside your head. So it's powerful.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well said, sir. FridayNightLegends.com, SaturdayLegends.com, two fine entrants into the cards and dice tabletop gridiron gaming universe. Thank you, Chris Doelle, so much. Thank you to your partner, Michael Wright, for all his work as well. And we'll put all your information in our video and podcast description here. Thank you so much.